Okay, the stream is live once again. Hopefully, technical difficulty free. Hello, everyone.
Hey, it's
and
working.
welcome
Click
to
unmute.
Adventure on so many levels. I'm Christiana Ellis, the Dungeon Master. We're going to play some Dungeons and Dragons. Hopefully, this time with sound.
Again!
Improved.
Dungeons and Dragons!
It was the mute version before. It's a whole new art.
So hopefully we get confirmation in the chat shortly. Hopefully that we are being heard now. But I think so.
The audio, yeah.
The issue that I don't know what caused it, but I could see that it was not picking up my sound. So it should be good now. So hi everybody. Our players tonight: Chooch Schubert as Autarky.
Hello, hello.
Starla Hodgton as Nirakina Ethu.
Greetings and salutations.
Jenny Meltzer as Cadence of the Water.
Hello.
James Meltzer as Ket of the Sands.
I said it once and I'll say it again. I liked episode 5 of Game of Thrones. Fight me!
I'll say it again. Roll initiative. Mark Kilfoyle as Alaric Copperbeard.
And now I know I've had too much of this desert.
And hopefully we will have Vivid Muse joining us as Amethyst shortly, but she is currently indisposed. Where were we? Last week we had a one-shot where we explored the depths of the Feral Forest and some of the mysteries going on back there. But 2 weeks ago, when we last saw the Heroes of Legend, you had left the crater where you had expected to find the Emerald Arboris, the multiverse-spanning world tree, but now occupied by an gemstone-encrusted dragon with a penchant for secrets. And he gave you some of those secrets in exchange for some of yours. And you were headed out of this crater on your way to the Astral Sea by way of the elemental plane of air. But before you could go too far, you encountered what seemed at first to be a delegation of Githzerai from the allied forces that aided you in the big battle from a while back. But turns out that these Githzerai had actually been enthralled by the Lord of the Hunt, the Fey Lord, who had been seeking the stolen moment to retrieve it for his queen, who actually was the creator of the stolen moment. But you all were able to fight him off. It was desperate goings there for a little while, but you managed to capture him alive and decided, in the long run, even though he might seek you again, you were willing to release him unharmed with the promise that he would return home before seeking you again and deliver a message that you just wanted to borrow the stolen moment. You'll give it back afterwards. So, we left our heroes in the middle of the desert, severely depleted and down on spell slots. No means of long-distance travel, no means of safe rest, but in need of that rest all the same. And so that's where we pick back up. We left you just right outside this enormous, illusory, magical bubble that contains the crater. And Melicanth saying that other than the oasis, which had kind of already been vetoed due to the presence there's not really anywhere else to go. What's the plan?
We're just going to have to watch each other, like have a couple of us stay awake and a couple of us take a nap and just keep an eye on each other. We really can't go anywhere else, you guys.
Yeah, man. It'll be like the olden days before I had the fancy mansion. We could just, take turns watching each other's back.
Well, wasn't this place a desert when you lived here last? I mean, you must know some tricks about sleeping in the desert or something.
Well, no, man. There was like a city here.
You never left the city.
It wasn't just a big pile of sand, dude.
It's a city cat.
Well, there are tents. There was the tents that the Githzerai had had set. One of them is undisturbed. The other one got sort of blasted open from below, but could probably be repitched.
Well, I say we travel for a bit and then set up the tents and take shelter somewhere.
Well, I mean, we don't want to go too far because we don't want to end up back by the oasis again with that crazy psycho trying to eat our memories.
Oh, that fucking.
So, what are we gonna do? We regain our strength.
Well,
Definitely need to
yeah,
rest.
we'll take a rest.
And then, but then what?
Man, one thing at a time there, Archie.
Well, Malacanth
Well, I mean,
will-
that just kind of would help to say whether we should move somewhere and then sleep or just sleep.
Malacanth
Right.
was saying our concern initially had been that we didn't want to stay in one place any longer than we needed to. However, our
True.
hand is somewhat forced there. But we had discussed the next opportunity to create a mansion should be done with a forge and workshop inside
Right.
to allow the fabrication of the tuning forks necessary to cast plane shift for our
Mm-hmm.
intended destination.
And
We,
then
uh,
we're going to plane
So
shift
what we
back
could
to the
do-
battlefield.
What we could do is we could take a nice little nap tonight, and then tomorrow, when we wake up all refreshed, I could cast my fancy mansion with the forge and stuff, and we could spend the day discussing our plans and stuff while you're building the tuning forks and everything, you know, and then we could sleep again in there that night, and then the next morning we could do our business.
That
We're
sounds
going to need to
reasonable.
also figure out a way to get some protection for Cat of the Sands and Cadence of the Water. That's how the Lord found us the first time, or this last time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. We need some kind of
Find a way to make some more of these charms.
some fancy tattoos or something, man.
Yeah, it's probably not smart to go back to Carrot and Stick.
I don't think we'd really be welcome there anyway.
Yeah, they're probably doing rebuilding anyway. I mean, that's what they're doing when we went there before.
Well, we're not going to find anything out here in the desert. So next time we hit the city, I'll ask around and see if anybody has any kind of, you know, amulets or something that will help with that.
So Malacanth says, I believe that if we were in dire need, that Carrot would still be willing to help us, but I would prefer not to ask that of her after they have already given us so much. And we repaid it, their favor, largely with more trouble.
Giant turtles.
I mean, if we can send a message to them maybe and have them make them. I don't think it would be good for us to go there.
In any
Especially-
event, if we intend to make these tuning forks with plane shift, there is no need to transport ourselves back to the battlefield. With plane shift, if we make the tuning fork for the elemental plane of air, we can transport ourselves directly to there.
Mm-hmm.
We could even do so from within the mansion.
But wasn't there a reason that we couldn't do that? Because we didn't have anything from there, or she
Well,
had never been
we
there?
do need something from the elemental plane of air, but, and Feathercrest is like, I'm from the elemental plane of air.
Yeah, we can finally get you
And
home.
everything I've got on me is from the elemental plane of air.
Yeah.
If we have something we can offer them, maybe Feathercrest people can also offer us a ship to ride in the elemental plane of air. It's kind of open. There's not a lot of walking going on.
Feathercrest, would you mind if we pretended to have kidnapped you and then use you for ransom?
She kind of cocks her head thinking about that a little bit and just saying,
I mean, that's kind of the way that they were treating me.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's true.
she's
eh?
like,
Tit for tat.
yes, that's actually why I realized it's a bit of a complicated. I suppose if it seemed that was necessary, but I'm not sure.
You know, I mean, do they value you enough to like give us a ship? Like, hey man, give
Well-
us a ship where your Feathercrest gets it. Not that we'd really kill you. I'm just kidding. We
I'd
wouldn't
rather
really.
pay
wink.
them if we can
Well-
offer them something.
Don't we have other means of doing that, though? Like, we don't necessarily, like, we've got means of flying to where we need to go.
But not
My
navigating.
people are my people, and I would prefer not to deceive them just so as to extort more supplies from them if we could just ask for their help.
You got it, man.
Yeah.
So-
I'm covering all the bases.
We can-
man.
we can do
That's
that,
all.
yeah.
Yes,
That's
I
reasonable.
understand. I think, though, that if what you need is transportation to the fissure that leads to the astral sea, it's not so much a matter of supplies that is needed as much as a ship willing to take you there and willing to brave the dangers. As you know, well, I'm not sure that we've discussed it a great deal, but there are forces that have been raiding the elemental plane of air from the astral sea, and they are in greater numbers on the other side of the rift, of course, and so passing through there is not trivial. And I promised, and I intend to keep this promise, that I will see you to the rift, and I will do everything I can to ensure that you have means of travel. But I don't. It's not a resource question so much as a logistical one.
Are there ever any ships that go there on purpose that might be looking to hire on?
I'm not sure that. I think that I would, if we could get in touch with my ship. We're past when I should have reported in. If we could get in touch with them, though, I think they would be willing to transport you there. But that gets you to the plane, and this. You all are used to this place and the way you move in this place, but neither my home nor the astral sea are like this, with one down, and it's the same for everyone at all times, and it doesn't change. In my place, there is no up or down. It's a matter of will. Even non-flying creatures can choose their relative down. Now, without wings, it's a little more difficult to move carefully, but you can travel in whichever direction you choose to go. Now, in the astral sea, it's altogether different because nothing would drive you in any direction at all except your own will. And the only way to move there is by willing yourself to move. It is not physical at all.
Drat.
Well, I mean, that's a scary thing. I know that Amethyst said something about making us be clouds again. That might help us at least navigate a little bit, but we wouldn't be able to fight.
Yeah, I don't mean to suggest that it's overly difficult, just it's important to understand, I think, so that you can make appropriate plans. There are ships that travel there, and even our airships can be maneuvered there simply by having everyone on board concentrate on where we want the ship to go. And it can be difficult because it requires everyone to be working together in that regard, but ships can be made to travel in the astral sea. Now, these peoples that live in the astral sea, if you can call it that, and who have come out to raid, my understanding is that they are, superficially you would say they're like the Githzerai that we fought earlier today, but they are actually the mortal enemies of that people, the Githyanki. And they make their homes in the astral plane. They are experts at traveling in it. And their ships are specifically designed for that purpose. And so it is a bit of a two-sided coin because on the one hand, it means their ships are a significant danger and would have a distinct advantage over one of my people's airships. But on the other hand, if one of their ships could be taken,
You read my mind.
Could they be hired?
possibly, but I would be wary of trusting anything they say. They seem to, well, let's say they do what my people do, only without a moral compass. They take what they want. Period.
So they're pirates. Sort of.
Of a kind, yes.
Something to sleep on anyway.
Hmm.
And I don't know about the rest of you, but I could beat the crap.
Yeah. Yeah, you were unconscious there for a little while.
Yeah.
So
We
are
should
we
stand
staying here or
watches.
are we moving?
We're staying here. I don't think we should move. I mean, we thought that
We should stay here.
Well,
I mean-
in that
Yeah.
case, I would like to poof into existence some food and water for everybody.
Very nice.
Oh my god, thank you.
So my understanding is that the spell of create food and water, the food is nourishing, but not necessarily like especially tasty. But it, gets the job done.
It's like
the
Value
water's
Mart.
You
clean.
won't
Right,
starve.
I might just sprinkle some sand on it for some taste and a little bit of texture.
Oh, here, let me do that for you.
It may be fancier, it doesn't taste any better.
So conjured
we've
food
still
in the
got,
desert, that's
Oh.
never happened before.
However, I do have something for this. I just remembered.
Yeah.
I make my food taste better
Yeah.
with prestidigitation.
Oh,
Nice.
there you go.
I actually have a cantrip that'll help me.
I was remembering that you had done that once before, so I wasn't sure whether to remind you. But I think it makes sense that your character wouldn't forget.
Still put the sand on it though.
could you make mine taste like chicken?
I can try, and I try, and it tastes not entirely like chicken.
I'm so out of it and I'm so tired. I cast message on my food and tell my food to taste like chicken.
You can reply to this
You can
message.
reply to this message.
I put a mark on his food that is a little chicken shape.
Oh my god, you guys, it worked!
We've still got bad guys kind of strewn around, right?
Well, there's
Like dead
there
bodies?
were the bodies of
Yeah.
some. The two hags that were killed kind of just dissolved into dust, and the sirens kind of poofed out like clouds when when they
Right.
fell. But the two Gitzerai are their bodies are still there.
Should check their pockets at least.
Yeah. See if they have any like magical working
And the griffin,
supplies.
I guess, the griffin body, except for the cut off beak. Is still
Anybody
there,
know how to
too.
cook? Can probably cut this up.
You'd eat this griffin.
I bet that tastes like chicken.
You know, I kind of
We
want to
should
take.
try it. Let's do that.
Does it taste like chicken or does it taste like lion? I don't understand.
Save me a drumstick.
But you butcher the griffin. I mean, it's gonna taste halfway between chicken and lion, I guess.
We've got time, and we ate dragon before, so
Feels sort of cannibalistic in a way to me, but
I'm not a griffin.
I'm kind of like a lion.
Just eat the bird part. Should be fine.
Yeah, just the bird
Yeah.
part.
Well,
You want
Archie's
a
going
wing?
to take the
Yeah.
two bodies and drag them kind of away so we don't have to smell them. And he's been kind of morose with these changes and everything, and kind of contemplates them for the next minute or so. Kind of looks at them and thinks about them,
Is he gonna eat them?
and inadvertently casts Animate Dead.
Ooh.
Oh,
Inadvertently.
That's so
It
creepy.
is something he's never been able to do before, but now
Yeah,
that
just-
his oath is gone,
He had just kind of
he
this
feels this
epiphany.
connection to them. He has a stirring. And he kind of.
I did not see this coming. I'm looking up the spell just to make
I
sure.
can take care of
I
that pretty
understand.
Creates an undead servant. So if it's a body, it's a zombie.
Yeah.
If it's bones, it's a skeleton.
Yeah, so you've got a zombie. So you can
For
pull up the
24 hours.
zombie character, the page in D&D Beyond to have the stats.
I added it into my creature tab.
Awesome. So you do that, and so I'll go ahead and say that before you had done that, you did check the pockets, and they
Right.
didn't have much. They each had sort of this like woven beaded thing where the beads look like they're kind of a fancy, they glass-like or maybe gems, and so you think that could potentially be valuable to the right buyer. They each had something to that effect. They didn't have any like coins or money on them. I think they did have some weapons. Let me pull up what. No, because they were doing mostly unarmed strikes and stuff. So let me just double check what they had. But yeah, so so they didn't have much is the point. But as Otterkey, has dragged one over, you guys see him kind of off over there, just kind of pondering, and then all of a sudden, and you see one of the bodies, still clearly dead, standing back up.
I fire an arrow at it.
Go ahead and roll an attack.
I should have stayed petrified.
That is a 12.
Armor class is only 8.
That is 13 points of damage.
Alright.
How many hit points does he have?
That's, let's see, the default 22.
No, okay, it's still alive.
Yeah.
Hold on, this. I feel them.
I can see them.
What are you doing? Did you do that?
That is now under my control.
Well, you have to warn us before you do that. I mean, I could
Well, I
kill
didn't
your
know it.
best friend. I don't know.
I didn't know it. This is
what did-
new.
Those things are nasty. Archie, can I just... Like, do you really want to keep it?
Well, I mean, it could stand guard, I suppose.
Just to make sure it stands in the right direction of the wind.
How long does this last for? Is this like a permanent friend in need?
About a day.
Oh,
Is
that's-
it
Well,
sentient? Like,
you could refresh it after a day.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, you could have it forever?
I don't think
Yeah.
he's going to come with us forever.
In theory.
this heat, this thing is not going to last that long. Ugh.
Yeah, they're gonna be like skeletons by tomorrow.
They're going to be harder to explain if you run into anybody else.
Yeah, Melicanth is kind of approached it kind of cautiously to make sure it wasn't going to like lunge at her suddenly or something, but then she's kind of just inspecting it, and
Have it do a deep bow.
she says, "And you didn't know you knew how to do this?"
Can I?
I was thinking about, what we're doing and our quest, and I kind of focused on that emptiness. And normally I would feel the spirit of vengeance there, and now it's this hollow, but it's this darkness, and I felt this connection to them. It's new.
Great.
I hate zombies.
While this is going on, I want to sneak away from the group and go behind the tent that is still standing.
Okay. Are you doing anything over there that we need to know about right away?
I want to cast Disguise Self on myself and
Okay.
make myself look like a zombie.
All right.
But I didn't know if I
like
had
a
to make a
zombie of yourself, or
No, just like one of the dead guys.
okay. I think while that's happening, Malakanth is saying, you all mentioned that you gave something up to the dragon, and the magic of spirits and the vows that people sometimes take is not my specific purview, but it seems that must be related.
Yeah, and during the battle, it was the same thing. I would normally focus, and I would have the ability to do certain things, and that was not available to me. But I was able to make them fear me in a totally different way. This is going to take some getting used to, but I mean,
Just
at least
focus on the goal.
we could have 2 sentries while we sleep. I can tell them to stay quiet.
The only warning I would give is that while obviously we all have our own distinct talents to bring to bear, and this may be indeed useful, perhaps some effort towards not doing things accidentally.
It's reasonable.
Or if you
And-
plan on having more accidents, do them now.
Or-
At least while there's no one around.
And
I would just point out that every single thing we've done up until this point, since we met each other, has been completely accidental.
Fair point.
well, perhaps communication then.
Mm-hmm. That's fair.
Yeah, if you're gonna play with dead things, tell us first. That way we won't go shooting them by accident.
Yeah, I'm sorry I shot your friend.
No, it's all right. Yeah, they're
Probably
okay.
still get the arrow back. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna go out. I need that for later, probably.
Jeez, there's another one.
That's not
I thought you
mine.
said there were 2. Okay, I'm going to. I'm casting. I'm taken by surprise, and I am casting Destroy Undead on Cat.
Can you? Is your destroy undead only on the ones you choose, or is it any undead around you?
I don't know.
Well, but since I'm not undead, it won't work,
Let's see.
Well, it won't work on you.
right? Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
I'm looking for. Where did it go?
Mutt and
I
Jeff
see
there might be
It's
done.
in your
But
channel
not-
divinity.
Yeah. Well,
Please tune to Channel
Maybe under
Divinity.
features and traits.
I'm looking at it. It says your turn undead, but I can't see
When it fails its
my
saving throw,
turn undead.
it is instantly destroyed.
Well,
Oh,
so
okay.
Turn
the,
undead is a radius.
so
Yeah,
the,
it just
is-
failed saving throw.
Yeah. You rolled the saving throw. Did you roll it or no?
Oh, I did not yet. No.
I believe it's a wisdom saving throw.
CR3 or lower.
Okay.
Yeah, the zombie is definitely
Uh,
below CR3.
I'm not sure.
I start laughing.
Yeah. There's you don't choose which ones. So
Darn it. Okay. I lost my.
So it's like all the undead that are
Trying to
around.
see if it has
yeah,
a-
within 30
it is.
feet.
It is. Each undead that can see or hear you within 30 feet
There it is.
makes a
Oh,
wisdom
yeah.
saving throw.
I've got an arrow cocked and like
Okay.
shot.
Feature zombie -2, which is a 12.
Okay, 12 I think does not succeed. So, Mira, reacting suddenly, calls upon the divine energy, and radiant light swirls out from around her, and your zombie is just vaporized. Dust.
Cat is still standing there, so I fire an arrow at him. And that is a 16.
That's my armor class, so you hit.
Nice.
And that is 10 points of damage.
I just scream out, "Oh, son of a bitch, Gatus!"
What are you even doing? What is wrong with you? And then I just kind of like slap him in the head.
Wow. That's
We
good to
got-
know.
Have
and
some fun, man.
We definitely need to sleep.
That's good to know when things
Now we
get,
have no sentries.
heated. Well, we
I'll
didn't
take the
before.
watch.
Well, and then Melicanth will say, well, neither Nira nor I need to sleep. Exactly. So,
We could take turns with, some of us keeping one of you company or whatever. And Alaric, I think that you need to go to sleep first because you were unconscious and seriously injured, and also your arm got ripped off recently, so I think you really need a nap.
I mean, the arm's kind of okay, but the rest of it makes sense. You'd think being unconscious would be restful.
No.
Melicanth is looking fairly rough, too. She went unconscious a couple of times herself, so she's definitely eager to go ahead and take first rest shift if that's okay with everybody.
That's fine. I'm going to sit just inside the mouth of the cave for my watch because not
Okay.
in the burning sun.
So it's not a cave specifically, but it is like if you imagine a dome, it's like a crack in the side of it that makes sort of a little tunnel through there. So you could call it a cave, but the walls are not rock. They are like swirling magical energy.
Is it kind of out of the sun?
Yeah.
Okay, then that's where I'm gonna sit.
All right.
So then I can still see,
Mhm.
but they can be in the.
I just was trying to be clear as far as the
Okay.
visual image here.
Yeah, that's. I was picturing more like actual tunnel like, but
Hmm.
I will take watch with Nira.
Okay.
Crawl into a tent.
I go
Yeah,
to
no.
sleep still looking like my zombie because it lasts for an hour.
Okay. Well, so right now, you gather that it's still sort of late afternoon subjectively here in this location. So the sun hasn't gone down, but that doesn't stop you guys from resting. Although certainly, I would say it's not the most comfortable you've ever been. It's hot and dry, and the sand is coarse and it gets everywhere. Anyway, so I would say even with the tents, it's not great. But those of you who are resting, you can go ahead and do that. And so,
How about I'll
Nira,
cap darkness on one of the tents?
oh yeah,
Darkness spreads from a point you choose, 15-foot radius. So I could cast it like on a tent, and it'll be
How-
enveloped in darkness.
how long does it last?
Oh, 10 minutes. Never mind.
That's long enough to go to sleep.
True, yeah.
Only to have it suddenly cut off 10 minutes in. I do.
Yeah, it's only 10
Go ahead and use those spell slots.
Right? You're experimenting here.
Yeah, no, hey, I'm not criticizing. So
That's better.
So we have Nira and was it Cadence that was staying up with Nira?
Mhm.
All right.
Yep.
So do you each want to make a perception check or one
Yeah, we
with
can both.
advantage?
Perception.
I have +9 to perception, so
I have +7.
I'm pretty. Yeah. That's a 19.
I got a 21.
Okay. Yeah. So you guys are pretty watchful, but there's not really much to see. You see sort of the heat baking off of the sand in the distance. You see the swirls from windstorms here and there. Of course, you probably occasionally sort of look up just at this strange, enormous illusion covering this whole area, but nothing seems to approach or disturb anything. As it starts to get dark, like towards the end of your watch, the sun is going down. Are you guys making a fire or anything?
Yeah, I probably should do that.
Yeah, because it'll start to get colder.
With what?
Question.
Hmm. Are there any
feathers?
sticks? Are there any like dried plants, like dried out plant life or sticks or anything like that around?
Not really. I mean, it's pretty bare desert.
Guess we'll have to burn these bodies.
Oh.
I mean, bodies will burn, but they're not really like a fuel source. You can't just like light up the robes with matches and expect it to just.
I mean, I suppose we could burn one of the tents, but that seems like it wouldn't last very long, and we kind of need that.
No. Hmm.
Hang on. Let me pull up Amethyst's sheet here, just because druids sometimes have spells useful for things like this.
I'm looking. I don't have anything like that.
I mean, I have a potion of fire breath, but that's about it.
You can breathe fire all over those torches and set them alight.
Well, so let's see.
Garvin's got lots. Those feathers should go up pretty good.
Because Druidcraft can like start a fire, but it doesn't like give you something to, to grow with. Doesn't give you anything to burn.
Yeah.
There wasn't anything else in the tents?
I mean,
Just, like, I mean,
nothing
they were
that's
just
really
a ruse,
suitable
really,
for
but...
making a campfire with. Like, there's like blankets and stuff like that, but mostly it was all a trap anyway. It wasn't, it was like it's really just kind of disguising stuff.
What if could Amethyst do grasping vines and we could burn the plant life?
Well, those disappear after like a minute, though.
Oh.
Yeah, I think I'm afraid you guys. I'm not sure.
It's gonna be cold.
Yeah, I don't think. I offered make a fire just because I was thinking, yeah, you're setting camp, but I'm not sure I can think of any. There's not really anything.
Yeah.
We'd have to go to the Oasis to get anything.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't even know if any of that stuff would be real anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I guess they will just have to be told.
It does start to cool off pretty significantly as the sun goes down. But so that's kind of what comes up through like the first sort of 4-hour shift. Are you guys staying up, or what's the sort of the watch plan here?
I need to tag out as soon as Melicanth's up and running. So
Right. So she went ahead and did her trance, so she could be, still resting but awake and paying attention after that first 4 hours.
do the whole high five on the way out. Tag, you're it.
She's like, okay. She's a little wary. Like, are you serious right now? All right.
Yeah. Why not?
Oh, my iPad just thought I was talking to Siri.
Because you said seriously.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stay up with Melicanth also because Ket said he was gonna do the mansion in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
So knowing that we will have someplace safe tomorrow, I'm willing to go ahead and take that point of exhaustion so that the others can sleep because they all got hit pretty hard.
Yeah. Once she's kind of aware, Melicanth also will say that, she certainly has spells that could start fire, but not to provide anything to burn. Yeah, so I think she's there with you, and we'll go ahead and make perception checks for the next, this next 4-hour stretch.
19.
She also got a 19. You guys are, are you chatting about anything, or you're just kind of letting the others sleep and?
I'm just letting.
That's fine.
I'm being very introspective
Hmm.
and not really talking a whole lot.
Melicanth definitely not a nervous talker herself, so kind of just lets that be the vibe. But I think at a certain point near the end of that 4-hour stretch, you do both get a sense that out on the dunes out there somewhere, there is some moonlight. So you do get the sense that there is a figure approaching in the distance, but the dim light here and the way the dunes work, it's a little hard to get a sense of how close they are. But they seem like they're passing somewhere in the distance and moving approximately in your direction.
They'll probably get eaten by the oasis. I hope.
So Melicanth is content also to see if it's just going to pass by, but it does seem to gradually turn in your direction.
As it gets closer, can we make out any of the details or anything?
Make another perception check.
That is a 17.
Okay. What you see after a little bit is part of what confused you about how close they were. Is it seemed like it seemed like a little bit of an optical illusion, but what you realize is that it's not an illusion. It is that they appear to be easily 20 feet tall. And it is sort of a tall, very tall, lithe figure wearing sort of, robes and a big pack on their back and moving in your direction. Are you saying anything or doing anything as it approaches? It's still like 300 feet off.
It looks like it's coming directly towards us.
Yeah, it looks like it changed direction and started towards you.
I will start walking out towards it to meet up with it to see if I can figure out its purpose. And then as I turn to do that, I'll just kind of turn to Melicanth and be like, be on lookout if we have to wake the others.
She nods. Be careful, she says.
I unsling my bow as I'm walking out.
Okay.
Just to be on.
I think so. As you walk in that direction and take your bow off, the figure does stop and just kind of stand there expectantly, like waiting for you to come closer. But it stops approaching.
I want to get maybe within 50 feet before I stop.
Okay.
And I'm just going to be like, "What? Can I help you?"
So as you get that close, you see that this is indeed a giant of some kind, although it's definitely a she, and it's kind of dark brown skin, again like these robes, sort of a tall, lithe frame, traveling alone as far as you can tell, big pack on her back, and she just says, "I mean you no ill will, my small friend. I simply saw a campsite in a location where I would never expect to see a campsite. I wanted to warn you that you camp in dangerous lands."
Well, we are well aware of the dangers of this land. But thank you for your warning.
Very well. I hope that whatever brings you to this place goes well for you.
Thank you.
And she turns to start walking away.
What brings you this way? What are you traveling these lands for?
She turns back and says, "May I approach?"
Sure.
She does come closer and stops at about 30 feet, and then kind of slowly kind of goes down to to sit cross-legged on the sand, and even then her head is still like 10 feet above the ground, and she just looks to you and says, I've been traveling these sands for a long time, wandering, hoping that my pilgrimage will lead me to wisdom.
Are you on like a religious pilgrimage or personal?
I suppose it could be religious in the sense that I make myself open to the spiritual energies of this place. It has been a long time since there was a spirit with will in this place, and yet it should be here. It is a gap in the spiritual landscape. I seek to understand.
Yes, something was taken from this place.
Are you on a pilgrimage too, then?
I think so. Though I don't remember why.
That is a hazard, I find.
Yes. There are many things here in this desert that like to eat our memories.
Yes, the oasis. There have been many lost to that evil place.
Yes. The creature there is not kind.
It acts according to its nature.
It does, but I think it is also working for something else. I think that it does do what it is designed to do, but I think that it also receives pleasure from the fact that it works for something else.
Hmm.
But
It is true that the balance between living creatures and spirits is more nuanced than it would sometimes seem. Both sides reacting to the other, not realizing that they influence as well. So while it is true that sometimes spirits can be malicious, spirits are what their environment makes them.
that is true. I think.
And
I think
then living creatures are shaped by the spiritual landscape that surrounds them as well. Not physically, but those who are open to the spiritual energy will find that they are influenced by it. And it is a wise mind that can guide that influence like irrigation to crops.
that makes sense.
Elsewise, all that is good can be simply washed away in a flood.
That makes a lot of sense. You're very wise.
It kind of nods, and I think you get a little bit of a sense of regret from them, like a little bit of a sadness, but just says, I'm pleased to hear that said.
But I wish you well on your journey.
To you also. We all go on journeys in these times. The world that we live in is more than we see here, and yet it is sick, just as a body can get sick.
Yes. And some of us must do what we can to make it well again.
Yes. Ensure, to the best of your ability, that the cure of that illness does not itself become worse than the disease. And she kind of goes to stand up and is just once again kind of just towering even further. I will leave you and your companions to your rest.
Thank you. I just watch her go, and then when she leaves,
You can see her for a long time because she's so tall. She just towers like some of the dunes going up and down, some that a human-sized person would disappear behind, but you still see her above it. So you can watch her go for quite a while.
and then once I see that she's like way out of, like barely within vision, I turn around and just walk back to the camp then.
I pop my head out of the tent. Is the big woman still here?
Oh,
I think Melicanth just kind of, nods to you as you come back and say, "Is everything all right then?"
just a traveler.
Good. Good. There's so much in this world that I feel like I would want to know more about. Yet everything... The mission has to come first. Right? It has to come first.
It does, but at the same time, I find myself wondering what we are all giving up for this mission. What we've already given up. And what will be left of us when all is said and done.
She nods there and just says, "It has been my hope for a long time that everything I've done to try to correct the original mistake could be undone if we restore the timeline and are able to stop the demon from rampaging. It will... I've had to do things that were necessary in the mission to save this entire universe. And I don't doubt that they were necessary, but my hope has always been to make them so that they were no longer necessary and could be undone.
Don't be so hard on yourself, Melican. No matter how hard Mira is on you from time to time. You did what you thought was right.
I see so much of myself in her.
Those are the hardest relationships to foster.
I miss that clarity sometimes. I've been working for so long to try to bring this about, and I thought it was the only path. And I have to be honest that while I want to seek out any alternative, anything that will give us any chance to help, and so we're pursuing this tree, but I wonder, there's no one else that is qualified to make these decisions more than we, or at least no one that I know to ask. And yet we are forced to make world, universe-changing decisions with such inadequate information. It would seem that we don't have the right to do it, and yet we must, because who else can?
Yeah. We keep having people to tell us that they need to guard our choices and watch over what we're doing. And it angers me because they don't do anything. And they say that they'll intervene when we don't do what they want us to do or what they think we should do. But why don't they intervene now?
You are experiencing a taste of the frustration that I felt for the better part of 100 years, while your companions here were sealed within that temple, going everywhere and speaking to everyone I could think of, trying to seek a solution, and yet there is so much rigidity in the way things have always been that it seems impossible sometimes to make changes, even if they are necessary to save everything.
It's a heavy weight.
I have to confess that what we have already discovered here about the tree makes me suspect that there's more in play, and there always has been more than just using the artifact when we did. And that could mean that simply replacing it might not be enough. And so I feel we have to pursue this avenue, at least to find out all we can about it.
I don't think we have any other choice. It brought us all together in the weirdest way.
Yes, but each risk we take, each step we take away from simply restoring the moment as my original plan had us doing. What if we just get ourselves killed and then there's nobody left to do it?
Someone will pick up the pieces. Remember, they're watching us. They're watching our progress and deciding whether or not we're doing what they want us to do. And hey, I mean, Zoreth will do whatever he wants. If we die, then he will at least get his wish. But I don't think we will die. I mean, we could. I'm not cocky enough to think that, we're invincible, but I do think that we are all gathering power for a purpose. And we have to stay strong and keep our goal in mind.
Yes. Have to keep the goal in mind. Yes, you're right.
We can't worry about those little things like what if we die, because then we spend all of our time thinking about that.
Nothing for it but to carry on.
Exactly.
So, that is that 4-hour stretch. So, those of you who slept through that first go, it's now kind of the middle of the night, local time, but you've had the chance to get your full rest.
Yay.
And that includes Melicanth, so theoretically she could be available to cast teleport at any time, should that be necessary. But, per what had been discussed in terms of the planning, the idea would be that I think you were planning to cast the mansion here, or were you planning to go somewhere else first?
I can cast it wherever you guys want. Do you guys want? Do we need to go anywhere else, or can I just?
No, and she's saying we can plane shift from inside, so if it's like impenetrable,
Might
as well
not be a
here.
bad idea to go someplace we can get some resources, though.
As you guys are having this conversation, all of a sudden you kind of off to the side you hear Feathercrest gasp, and you look over there and you see that she is holding a little paper airplane. And she kind of looks to you, Alaric, and her hands are trembling a little bit, and then she unfolds it and she's reading it. Kind of starts to tear up a little bit. It's from my ship. It's in Aran. I don't know if any of you speak it, but I can translate. It says, Feathercrest, I hope that you are alive somewhere and this reaches you. We've also sent letters to Hookbeak and Scraggle. After you didn't report in, we checked through the tear and saw the devastation left from some kind of battle. We hope that you made it through and are just delayed, but we can't wait. Githyanki patrols are in the area. If you are able to come back through the tear, head for the nearest chunk of rock. We've hidden a care package in the usual way. More letters and enough supplies to hold you over until we can come for you. If you find some other way back to the city of the Wind Dukes, leave a message with Dockmaster Aseth. We raise our drinks to you three with wishes that you will return to us and that our dwarfish friend has been returned safely to his companions. We may have had to leave, but we did not forget you, and we won't. Captain Bluefeather and the crew of the Irresponsible Spec.
They are a good crew.
Yes, they are.
I'm still sorry for the loss of your friends. My friends.
Yes, thank you.
Still owe you two.
Well, we all knew it was dangerous when we came through.
I did try to impart some of the scale I was working on.
Yeah.
All right.
We thought ourselves pretty well traveled, but there's always a bigger bird.
Yeah. It does open up another possibility, though. We could go back to the tear, go into the plane of air, and do everything from there. It would be safer. At least it would get Ket and Cadence off the senses or whatever it is the Lord of the Hunt was using.
It is an option that would allow us to avoid having to go to any cities, but it would also potentially leave us vulnerable. If my ship had to leave because there were Githyanki patrols, then we would be at risk of those finding us before our ship could return.
How dangerous is a Githyanki patrol ship? Are they big?
The patrol ships are not so big. They carry a crew of 7 to 8.
7 to 8 doesn't sound so bad. Look over at Nirkina from the idea she had last night. You know how to fly one of those? Can you
Well,
figure it out?
my understanding is that there's... I do not have experience flying one of those, but my understanding is, again, that it is not so much a physical technique as a mental discipline.
Then we should be fine.
We could potentially, if we can take one, it would be excellent cover for going through to the Astral Sea.
To be sure, having one of their ships in the Astral Sea would be a distinct advantage.
Won't be easy, of course.
Nothing ever is.
You owe me a beer.
Then again, if if I was talking amongst my crew, the crew of my ship, we would discuss a Githyanki patrol as something to run away from. But after what I've seen you all do, I think you are up to the task.
Is that your way of saying we really suck at running away from things? Because I think that's probably true.
Well, if that's one way to put it, I suppose.
I've had short legs all my life. I've not run away from a lot of things. I just put that out as an option. It would give us a way to move. It would give us some hiding. It would give us a stable point. Everything else is falling apart. But we got other plans and smarter minds in mind.
Well, Melicanth is kind of thinks on this and is saying, I believe we should still prepare the tuning forks to give us the ability to travel to either plane as we need. I would suspect that even if what we wish to do is to travel to that tear, if we have the plane shift, we could still travel there rather than to the city without having to first return to the battlefield here. That may be the safest path. It's certainly the path that allows us to most easily avoid any other encounters with dangers.
Well, sounds like the plan's pretty much the same. Cat of the Sands, you want to make a door? Let's get some privacy.
Wait. Before I make this door, I need to make sure that we have everything in the mansion that we need. So is that all we need is a forge?
Soft bed would be nice.
Well, yeah, I know. Aside from that, aside from the usual stuff that we have,
Right, shady ass garden,
the shady ass garden, the chicken, the servants, the all that good stuff,
beer,
the tranquil room, and all that good stuff.
If anybody knows where I can get some strips of ivory, that'd be great.
You wouldn't be able to take them out of the mansion, though.
No.
Yeah, I'm actually just thinking about that.
Like if you create something,
you wouldn't be able to take them out of the mansion. But I cannot think of any reason why you wouldn't be able to use them in the mansion.
Like if we make tuning forks, we could leave the tuning forks in the mansion.
Well, the tuning forks, I think the mansion would not be able to create attuned tuning forks because
Just
that's kind of its own magic. But the
We're making
Legend
one
Lore
of stuff we
spell
bring in.
is just these ivory strips that are not inherently magical. They're just material components for another spell.
What do you need these strips for?
Magic stuff.
but if you're
One of
casting
those
it in the
things.
mansion, if you cast it in the mansion, you should be able to do it.
Yeah. That's kind of what I'm thinking about.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if you would let me do that.
Well, I'm just trying to think if there's any specific reason that wouldn't work. I can't
You can always give it a try. See
create
what
any
happens.
floor plan you like. It's furnished and decorated as you choose. Furnishings and other objects created by the spell dissipate to smoke if removed from the mansion. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure it's intended to be used that way, but because I can't think of a reason why you can't, it would mean that you would only be able to cast it in the mansion. But
And that's fine,
yeah.
because I think it needs a little time anyway.
yeah, but I think that if you have the, if you can describe to Ket what you need, he could have it created in there, and the incense is a little trickier because that's a consumed component. You know what? I'll
Is
allow
that
it.
something that as a cleric I would just have? That seems like it would just be like a
I
standard.
think you have some, but you probably don't have 250 gold worth.
Yeah.
Because like a cleric's, like the scholar's kit or the acolyte's kit or whatever has some incense in it, but not that much. But you know what? I'm going to allow it anyway. That you think that you would be able to cast it in the mansion, but not, but then once the mansion goes away, you don't still have those things.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So here's what I need, Kat. Need some ivory strips. About yay big.
Oh, and I looked it up. It is actually a spell that wizards theoretically can cast, even though Melicanth doesn't actually know it. Doesn't know that one.
Okay. So I will cast the mansion with the ivory strips and the forge needed for the tuning forks. All that good stuff. So, poof! There is a fancy door for us to all go through.
All right. Yeah. You all managed to get out of the blowing sand and probably get yourself cleaned up a little bit. I don't know. Cadence, are you heading straight to bed after staying up all night?
Yeah.
All right. So I think then that we've got a couple of things on the agenda, right? I think that the plan was to make the tuning forks with the platinum that you had.
Yeah.
So I think what we'll have you do is have you make 2 separate smithing tools checks. And what you're doing first is just making the metal tuning fork, and the attuning it to the planes will be a separate activity. But
I
you're
can help
making the
him.
tuning forks first.
I can help you with that.
Okay, yeah.
Excellent.
Give me something to do anyway.
Roll with advantage if Alaric's helping.
Trying to see. I guess it's just my.
Yeah, so I would say this
specific
is
smithing thing listed.
Yeah, so it's going to be proficiency, and I think in some respects this might be like intelligence and proficiency to make a tuning fork as opposed to it's. But I think that's that's the roll that makes sense. But you can roll with advantage.
Cool.
Because you're designing something you've never actually made before specifically, I would think.
Right.
But in concept, they're not terribly difficult. Because the spell doesn't even really say that it needs to work like a tuning fork the way we think of a tuning fork. It just needs to be like a fork-like piece of metal.
So that's a 23.
Okay, yeah. You've got, after a couple of hours, you guys work together. You sort of come up with the design. You make a mold from, the materials there in the workshop. You smelt down the platinum metal, which requires a pretty high fire. You're not usually used to working a lot with platinum, solid platinum. Probably in your background as a blacksmith, the idea of actually melting down platinum to make it into some other shape was just like, what? Why would you do that? But nonetheless, with the two of you working together, you come up with a plan. I think there's maybe a couple of brief false starts where you try one thing and that doesn't quite work, but you work on it and you keep going, and then together the two of you over the next couple of hours produce 2 new shiny little tuning forks. Do you etch them with anything like little symbols or anything like that? You'd probably want to make sure you can tell the difference between which one.
I was going to say, since one would be material plane and one would be, so yeah, come up with a symbol for each plane.
Feels good to do some honest, simple work again. To be truthful.
I completely forgot about the flow, kind of get in that zone, and feels good.
Yeah. producing something that you can hold in your hands. You know you made this. It is a thing that exists now because of your efforts.
So but like put an initial like M for material and a little symbol.
Okay. So the next step is to attune them based on the intended plane. So what are you going to do? What are you going to use for the both? So anyone who's able to cast the spell, which includes Melicanth, I believe it also includes Amethyst. I don't know if any of the rest of you can do plane shift. So either the two of them can certainly help, and what they know how to do as part of the spell is that you can take some object that is definitively, unambiguously from the plane you're looking for, and there's basically a fairly simple little ritual that you can put together where with the appropriate symbols you start the tuning fork vibrating, and then you basically touch it to the appropriate artifact. So what do you want to use to attune it to the prime material plane?
You just step outside and grab some sand.
And Melicanth will say, essentially, you don't want to use anything that is from the mansion, but anything that is from the material plane itself should work.
Well, I know of one thing that was made someplace I'd like to see again. This leather bracer that was made back in the city to hold my knives. I kind of like the idea of those old adventurers getting a chance to travel again through their things. That should ground us all.
Very well. So she takes the bracer and she kind of just marks out the various symbols, and then she takes the tuning rod and strikes it on a specific location in the symbols. And she touches it to the leather, and you see for a moment there's just sort of a shimmer of light, and the tone somehow seems louder just for an instant before it stops, and then there's just kind of a shimmer around the tuning fork that, it just feels like it has a potential that it didn't before. And she just says, it worked.
You surface travelers probably haven't heard that sound before. I know it well. Every miner does. Everybody thinks that deep in a cave it's quiet. There's no sound at all. That's never true. The rocks make sound all the time. Sometimes it's dangerous sound, sometimes it's alarming, but those still moments when nobody else hears nothing, I can hear the ground. That's what that sounded like. I want to hear that again. When this is all over, I gotta go back to a mine. Do something meaningful.
So as the time comes for the next one, Feathercrest has been studying all of this carefully because she's actually doesn't have magic powerful enough to do plane shift yet, but she's hoping to learn it. But as she is studying all of this and the time comes to make the tuning fork for the plane of air, she reaches into her cloak and pulls out what one is just like a small pocket knife, and one is a necklace, and she says, "These belonged to Hookbeak and Scraggle. I took them as mementos after the battle." And she puts them down in the symbol Once again. Ding. And there's the shimmer, and once again, Melicanth looks them over, taps them a little bit. She says, I believe these will be effective for the spell.
All right, that's
As long as we can hold on to them, then we should be able to use them whenever we need to.
And hold on to you, too.
Yes,
And
well,
Amethyst, of course.
Amethyst or I should be able to cast the spell. She kind of offers to Amethyst that she can hold them if she likes.
Maybe I'm the only one that thinks we should tie a rope to both of them, but... Maybe I should.
Feathercrest will just kind of say, yeah, you don't really want to drop them when we get to the elemental plane of air.
Yeah. How precise is this shifting business anyway?
Melicanth will say, we can name a location, and the more specific we can be in our imaginations when we attempt to target it, the more precise we can make it, but there is always some variability. The spell itself includes protections against appearing inside of a wall, for example, so there shouldn't be any danger of that, but I cannot guarantee that we will be any closer than perhaps a quarter mile from where we seek.
Till you said that, I wasn't even thinking about appearing halfway through a wall. Great.
Well, now you don't have to think about it, because that won't happen.
Good.
Shouldn't happen.
Not as good.
And Feathercrest will say, well, where we had found the fissure that we came through, there was the chunk of rock that they mentioned in the letter is not too far away, and if we appear in air, everyone will just need to be prepared. As I mentioned, it is a matter of mental will to choose your relative down, and then it is a matter of falling in the direction you intend to go. But there can be a trick to changing it just in time to slow your descent before you just crash into wherever you're going. And I can fly, so that will ease it to some extent, but even if we are all tied together, as you suggested, I don't think I could carry all of you if you are not able to fall in the right directions. We might want to have some sort of a plan for that.
I have a spell that can help some of us. Not everybody. So at least some of you better fall right. I don't know if you want to practice or not.
And
Find a high place and fall off it, and we'll see if it works.
I think the biggest challenge will be if we appear in the middle of the air, which seems almost entirely likely. The biggest challenge will be staying together in the immediate moment, because it will be very disorienting at first until we are able to examine our surroundings and determine where we want to go. Once, if we can ensure that we all stay together in that moment, it will be easier for us to make our way to where we intend to go.
Is there a place you could describe in enough detail that we might all be able to picture the same thing?
Feathercrest kind of rubs her face a little bit, and she's she kind of smooths her feathers a little bit, and is just saying, the problem is that I can envision the place very well because I know where it is. But there are so many places in the elemental plane of air that would look similar.
What about someplace within the
Alaric
city?
has also been there, and so he and I together.
I mean, there's one
Perhaps.
place I can describe far too well. That's a hole in existence. Might be good to go back there, I guess, to get some things. Still some supplies there left behind.
So Melicanth will offer that she is able to cast the fly spell on 3 people. So she could give 3 people the ability to fly. Feathercrest herself can fly automatically. Amethyst perhaps could change into a flying creature.
Or can summon creatures that we can
How-
ride, and I can now do a new flying mount.
Right.
How
I can
long
make
does it
people fall
take to
better.
cast the Windwalk spell?
It takes a minute to shift, right?
Right.
Right.
And so you could
And
potentially.
if I remember right, we were kind of at the mercy of the winds a bit.
But the challenge there is that you could potentially be shifted while in that form. No, actually, I'm not sure you
Yeah,
can
you
because
can't-
you
can't
need to
cast
be
that
you have to
yourself.
be linked hands, and certainly the person who is casting the spell would not be able to be in that form because they would have to speak the words and all of that, and everyone else has to be in physical contact. And it can transport up to 8 creatures.
8.
Yeah. So 9 total.
Feathercrest can
You
fly.
and up
Oh,
to 8.
okay.
Yeah.
Feathercrest can fly, so not necessarily needed for her.
Right. So, so let's see. I'm just counting. So I think, for convenience reasons, I think that we can count Arwen as sort of an adjunct to Amethyst. So if it's, the 6 of you in the party, plus Feathercrest plus Melicanth. Well, I guess even with Arwen, that would still just make 9, right?
Yeah.
So so the spell will get all of you. If Amethyst can shift into something that would be able to fly and potentially even be able to carry someone. But conjuring more creatures would make too many creatures to plane shift. She could do it once she's there potentially, but if the key is in the moment, staying together, you could also potentially. I mean, you'll come through all linked, holding hands still, so you'll be doing that whole skydiving thing, maybe.
It just said a spell that could change us all into birds.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay, great. So yeah, if Viv is watching, that's great. Hi. Yeah. So So she has the animal shapes spell, which is it's a high level spell, and what it actually allows that's kind of cool is it would change, whoever she wants to changes their physical shape, but it's unlike polymorph. They do actually retain their mind and their intelligence.
Cool.
Would not be able to speak, but could make everybody into a flying creature.
That might be a good backup plan if we
Right.
don't fall right.
Yeah, it might just be that it would certainly work, but it also might be that if there is a simpler solution, there wouldn't be a need to use an 8th level spell for that. But it would definitely work.
Another way to get around in these planes if we need it.
I feel like that might be the best way to do it. If I'm being honest.
Big spell though.
Well, what I think maybe Melicanth at this point suggests is perhaps that would be the best spell to allow us to board an enemy vessel unseen, or certainly by surprise. But if we are to do that, hang on, I'm going to look up the animal shape spell just to see if it's possible to go in and out of it. I think you can, because it's a fairly long.
I think it's a one or the other. I think.
Right. So I'm pulling up the spell. It's a biggie. It's an 8th level spell. With concentration, it can last up to 24 hours. If someone drops to 0 hit points, they change back. Okay. Yeah, I don't think you can change back and forth though. The person casting the spell can use their action to transform affected creatures into new forms. So I think actually, as long as the person casting the spell, Amethyst, can maintain concentration, she should be able to have you change into multiple different shapes if you need to. And I can only imagine that includes, your normal shape, because I can't think of any reason why it wouldn't. Beasts. So I guess beasts are not humanoids, but you could, yeah. Interesting. That's an interesting spell. That's cool. So I think beasts are not humanoids, and so I think that I don't think she can change you into your regular forms. But she could potentially change you into multiple other forms, like in sequence. Or theoretically, like if someone got poofed out of that shape, she could have everybody, refresh it as a new creature, and it would change everybody again.
Now, do you have that creature's hit points?
Yes.
Okay.
But if you go down to 0 from those hit points, that just makes you poof back to yourself. So, but it is something you would want to take into account what you do, because if you want to have more hit points, you could be a bigger creature, but the more threatening you are, the less you would be useful for, sneaking up on something.
Well, I think it's a good strategy for getting on the ship in the first place.
Yeah. I think Melicanth will suggest that it does seem like an excellent use of the spell for that purpose, and perhaps in order to hold on to that for that use, that you can maybe find another way to, literally, if it's just a matter of all staying together, you could just literally tie your waists all together when you go through. And then it'll just be kind of a group teamwork challenge to try to, if you have, Amethyst and Feathercrest and 3 other people able to fly, they ought to be able to guide everyone reasonably well to your landing spot.
Sounds like the most plan of plans we've ever had.
Yeah.
I'm a little worried.
Okay, so I have a question for the group. When I do this spell, I can ask about one legendary creature, object, person, thing of that nature, but only one at a time. So we have to choose. I can do this spell twice.
This spell. What spell?
If we were to want more information on, say, the tree, or the renegade, or the Marut that's guarding it. That was what it's called, right?
Yes. Well,
yes.
You guys didn't ever... I don't recall if I gave you that word, but yes. I think I must have, because I don't know where else you would have gotten it necessarily. But that is correct, so we'll just go ahead and say, yes, you know that.
Tattooed
that's
on
what
his
it was
chest.
called. Yeah.
Or Zora.
It must be a legendary thing that I'm asking about.
That rules him out, then.
Yeah. So essentially what is happening with this spell, other than the mechanical stuff, but like the in-world idea here is that the ancient wisdom of Rushama, with its endless eons of knowledge, has heard many legends over the years. And so you're tapping into that resource to find out about something that must have been of a legendary status enough that Rushama would have heard something about it, and that's the information you're seeking, essentially.
So that demon lord would be another one, possibly.
Possibly, but don't we have a book on demon lords? Maybe not that specific
I mean,
one,
so
but
I don't
back
know how to
when-
defeat.
Archie, way back when, Archie read a book about the specific demon lords in the Villa Nocta library, but you don't have that book. What you do have is the book, which is how to kill a demon lord as written by an archdevil.
But I got a lot of it up here.
so I'm thinking immediate needs.
Well,
So those are my top 3 choices, but I wanted to put it to conversation to get input.
we don't really know what we're going to be facing when we find the tree. And we kind of know its story to this point, don't we?
Do we?
I'm still sleeping, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, unless everyone else is kind of having this conversation, so if you went right to bed, then...
And this
yeah.
is after the tuning forks and everything, so it's been several hours at this point.
Yeah. I mean, if you guys want to have waited to have this conversation, then we could say that, but I would say, unless you made that decision to wait, it would not have been 8 hours yet.
Well, I would definitely like Cadence's opinion on the matter.
So we can just, you have the mansion for 24 hours, so, you guys
Sit around
can maybe
sit around the supper table with real chicken. Well, real fake chicken.
all
Still
kind
real
of
to me.
thinking it and not saying how much better it was than the conjured food that Nero made.
Wow, this tastes so much better than that conjured food.
This has color and taste and texture. It's like food.
Look, beggars can't be choosers, okay? You
Mm,
didn't
of course
die.
not. No, of course not.
I've had worse.
You're welcome for keeping you alive.
I lived on mushrooms for 4 years. I've had worse.
Yeah.
Although a lot of them had really good flavor and taste and texture.
So we can say
Side
that Cadence is participating now in the broader discussion. Was that a gesture to me, James? I wasn't
Oh,
sure.
no. I was just throwing seasoning on stuff.
Oh, okay, I see. Okay. I was making sure you weren't, like, raising your hand or something.
No.
Okay.
Don't mind him. He's just, cooking.
All right.
So I welcome your thoughts on what we would like to know more about.
I think that Alaric is right. I think that we already know as much about the tree as we need to know right now. Maybe the demon, like putting the demon back. Like if we restore the stolen moment.
What about the stolen moment itself? Is that a thing? Can it be a target?
Well, I would think it would definitely be of legendary importance.
That's a good one.
Well, there is also the renegade. Like, we know some things, but
We'll have more
Alaric, you
parts.
had mentioned wanting to maybe find more bits of him. This might be a way to do it.
Yeah, are they safe to hold?
I'm going to let you find out on that account.
Why am I not surprised? Look, if it gets its parts back together, I'm willing to carry them.
If we find its head, don't put it on your body.
Well, we
It's
don't
not-
have to worry about
we saw
that
its
one.
head. Its head's okay. Still. Yeah, maybe the renegade. Do you think we'll find another one of those big bruisers on the other side?
I don't know. All we know is that there was one there
Wait, is this
at the end that we saw.
is this a one-time thing where we have to you do it now and you'll never be able to do it again?
No,
Oh.
I can do this spell twice, but I can only ask about one thing per casting.
Oh, okay. Okay, but not like twice ever.
Well,
So
and
the
part of
god shepherd
the
years.
question earlier was the material components that I'm allowing can be conjured as part of the mansion, but you don't have otherwise. So-
Right. Have to do some illegal poaching.
Right.
Don't let Amethyst hear you say that.
Here, I'm going to officially declare that Seikamian is a world I made up, and so ivory is just a natural mineral formation in this world. You don't have to kill elephants for it.
It's petrified trees. There you go.
But what scares trees that much?
All kinds of
Lots
things
of
like
water.
dragons.
Being split between dimensions?
Right.
Okay.
Although you guys are all still wearing those non-detection charms made from flail snail shells, so
Hey, we earned those. We earned those the hard way.
Blood, sweat, and tears.
So,
So we could find out. I mean, would it be possible to maybe find out what to expect on, you know, the other side where the tree is?
So the tricky element of this is that you don't get to pick what you find out.
Mhm.
What you get is essential. So is a brief summary of significant lore about the item, but it's in the context of legendary lore as opposed to here are the facts about where this thing is right now.
So, asking about the Astral Sea and the Githyanki might be another possibility.
yeah, but I
Getting to know
think
their
you would
tactics.
get very broad information, and I don't necessarily know that those would be considered legendary.
The more you know about the thing you're asking about already, the more you know already, the more specific your received information is likely to be.
So, we're best to ask about something we know nothing about whatsoever.
Not necessarily. It will give us more in-depth information on something we already know a little about.
Is it possible to ask something like, what are the gods or major spirits of these places? Are we going to be treading on someone else's big toes?
I think that might be a different sort of inquiry.
Well, Melicanth could just say, certainly the Astral Sea itself and what hazards may be found there. I know a bit, but I've not explored it much myself. Archdruid Evergreen would know more, but I don't know that we can risk either him or ourselves in finding him.
How many blank tuning forks did we make? Because if we go to the Astral Sea, it might be handy to tune to something there too. Or somewhere else, like we've been to the plane of Earth too.
Well, if you guys have another 250 gold worth of metal, you can make another tuning fork.
Yeah, that the block was a 500 block, so we can do.
Well, you made
Four,
two,
right?
and they were 250, so 500.
Oh, 250 each. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
It doesn't have to be platinum, though. It just has to be metal.
Worth
Gotcha.
250.
Right.
Do you have any spare swords laying around?
Okay, that is what I put on here. So Amethyst has another bar, and we have a bar for Mugen.
There's an old set of armor in that bag there somewhere, I think.
Yeah, Alaric's armor.
That's
Well,
not
if you have
mine.
another platinum bar, I think that's probably
thought it
the
was yours.
simplest. But,
Yeah.
you know, up to you.
And then we
guys.
have 350 gold pieces in a leather pouch. We just melt those down.
350 gold pieces.
Yeah.
Pieces.
This kitchen is awesome.
Yeah.
So
So it
250
sounds
of
like
those.
several options, whichever you guys would want to choose to do.
I'm just thinking.
I'll make
while
a gold
we're
one,
there,
then we'll really.
That's
know
a
the
good idea.
difference.
Yeah. What?
Yeah.
Absolutely. You know, to have one ready to attune for that.
Mhm.
in case we need
I'll
to go
melt down
back.
the gold. It's easier to work with.
So, legendary thing. Have we made a decision? Come to a consensus?
Probably not. What is the thing you top most on your mind?
What are you thinking? Yeah.
Well, that one piece of the Renegade was incredibly useful.
Mhm. I think that we should try to learn more about it because, I mean, it did sort of lead us all together.
Something we should know more about. I can agree with that.
All right. Well, I will prepare everything. Bring all of the components together. If my spells will come up. That would be nice. All right. So I'm going to name and describe the thing that we are learning or hoping to seek more about. So I'd like to learn more about the renegade, or what else was he called? The gardener? Was that right? No.
Gardener?
The what was he
Keeper.
before he was the renegade? Trying to
Keeper?
remember.
Caretaker, was it?
Caretaker, that's what it was.
I was going to offer you could make a roll for me. And then, of course, you're also about to cast a 5th level spell that is basically, tell us everything about this guy.
Right.
So,
And boom, poof.
so you prepare
Joy.
the spell, and this is a 10-minute casting time spell. So the preparation of everything, the various incantations that you have to go through, and the hand gestures you're making, and the ritual alignment of these material components is much more involved than most of the spells that you cast on a regular basis. And you are really going through everything and keeping in mind as you prepare this, focusing on everything you already know about this entity. And then so the rest of you are watching, and it would seem to you that Nira is just continuing doing this same sort of, she's walking in kind of a circle around where she has prepared the material components, and she's got her eyes closed, but she's muttering to herself the various incantations and making the gestures. But for you, Nira, you slowly, like, you're still doing those motions, but your awareness is gradually diffusing outward, and you feel your awareness expanding and stretching as though it could somehow encompass all of infinity of time, and realizing that there's this vast tapestry of the timeline laying out before you, and focusing on this one entity. And you start to learn that there was, before there was anything else, law and chaos. And both were always needed. Because when everything is orderly and only acts as it's expected to, nothing changes. And if law were to have always only been law, it would have been perfectly orderly with nothing happening. But chaos comes in and disrupts that order. And it is chaos that would produce, if it had its way, also nothing. Because how can anything ever organize? How can anything ever become more complicated if there is not some sort of a system in place for it? And yet, the interface of the two is what allowed the world to be made. And yet, despite the fact that it is only the balance of these two forces that allows the rest of existence to exist, each of these forces still sees the other as its fundamental and irreconcilable enemy. There's the inexorable and the immovable. No, oh shoot. Now what was it sounded so cool, and then I forget my own notes. The inexorable and the uncontrollable. And these two forces, as they battled each other, the ripples from their conflict creating all the rest of the world, they became more specific than they were. They weren't just abstract forces, they were entities. And the forces of law separated into several entities that, to your current sensibilities, would seem to be made like constructs. They're not organic material, they are made from metal and minerals. And there was many of them, and they were very powerful, and they were all focused on controlling the existence and keeping chaos from taking too much ground. And one of the biggest battlefields between these two forces was the tree, because the tree touched everything. And by connecting everything, it meant that the different planes bled into each other, influenced each other in unpredictable ways. This was definitely a force of chaos. And so the tree was always one of the biggest battlefields between them, and the decision was made to assign one to monitor it, to ensure that while it may still act as this force of chaos, allowing the planes to influence one another, that it would never grow out of control. Beings could use it to transfer between planes, but only through specific means. It was only intentional and not accidental. But the war continued, and the one inexorable who had been assigned the role of taking care of the tree began to see its value, began to see how, by connecting everything, while the other forces of law saw it as separate planes being infected by one another, the caretaker began to see how the tree, instead of infecting one plane with another, it instead made all of the planes into their own one thing. And how it held together existence in a way that allowed it structure rather than just descending into chaos, in much the same way that a tree's roots prevent the soil from being washed away in a flood. And he began to appreciate the tree's role in all of this. But to the other inexorables, the caretaker had been infected by the chaos. His pure law function had been contaminated by chaos. It was the only explanation for how he could come to appreciate the tree instead of seeing it as an evil to be controlled. And the decision was made that the tree could no longer be abided in any form. The caretaker refused their orders to destroy it, and there was a fight. And even though the caretaker had many weapons to bring to bear, he had his feet, which could step into any dimension. He had his mind, which could hold all of existence in a single thought. He had his hand, which could create anything he desired. And he had his book, which allowed him to see anywhere and see everything. But he was no match for the other inexorables. And they destroyed him, scattering him to all the different planes. And then, when he no longer stood in their way, they attempted to destroy the tree. but they found it was too powerful. It could not be destroyed. And so instead, they attempted to seal it off, restricting it to one plane where it could do the least amount of damage to their thoughts in the astral sea. And this was a terrifying blow to the forces of chaos, that the Inexorables would have such power to rewrite all of existence in that way. And so they stepped up their attacks as well, bringing to bear all of their efforts to crush the now fragile universe and restore it to true chaos. And the caretaker, scattered, broken, but still loving what the tree meant and what it could stand for, sent his will out into the multiverse, hoping to find champions. And so the rest of you watch Nira just kind of stop chanting all of a sudden and just stand there with kind of a newly awakened expression on her face.
Wow, that is so much more than I was expecting. This is all incredible. All right, people, story time.
You want a beer?
So I don't really need to read.
No, I mean, what we can say is that you guys then, you then sort of fill everybody in on what you saw.
Page full of friggin' notes.
So, if he's been scattered across the planes, there was one in the elemental plane of Earth, there was one in the material plane. In theory, there could be one on the plane of air. I mean, there was a lot to take in there.
Don't you have a locate object?
As we've kind of discussed before, locate object can be very useful, but it has a very limited range.
Yeah, isn't it like 1,000 feet?
Yeah.
1,000 feet, yeah.
Yeah. But like if we could maybe find a general location, that might be useful.
Might be evidence of it too.
I have another suspicion, though. So in that story, they were talking about the forces of chaos stepped up their efforts in this battle.
Mm-hmm.
What if one of those forces saw an opportunity with the stolen moment object?
Add more chaos?
I mean, when this moment is stolen, where did it go?
Well, and Melicanth will point out, too, that before she got a hold of it, it was originally stolen and offered to her by one of the Fey Queen's servants.
Which is exactly what I was thinking of. So this Pishwish was... What they told you was that they were one of the Fey Queen's servants.
Mm-hmm.
How do you know that that was true?
Do you think that was an
believe
agent of
that it
chaos?
was true, but that does not mean that it was not under the influence of these agents of chaos. I mean, my understanding was that Pishwish was a known quantity, such as it is in the Fey court. I had heard that he was punished for his transgression, but did not have much more detail than that. It was considered distasteful by all those who I asked about it.
Yeah, if there's one thing I suspect that chaos is bad at, and that's not stepping on each other's toes, seems kind of a thing they would do.
One additional detail, just in case it wasn't clear, is that when I mentioned the caretaker's book, that was the,
Is the
you know, the thing.
Pentopticon,
Yeah.
yeah.
Does anybody
That's
else
pretty much.
Does anybody else think that it's kind of weird that the people who are watching our progress are, you know, they were like representatives of order in the multiverse?
They were the neutral ones, weren't they?
No,
They were one of
They were the lawful.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
and so as Melicanth will kind of explain, is like once we start discussing the outer planes, they are all guided by different infusions of energy. There is both law and chaos, and then there are also good and evil. And those are two separate axes that a plane can be anywhere on either axis. And so, you know, it is the forces of law and chaos, but I would hasten to say that even if we believe that it was law that initiated the problem here and that we would want to oppose them by restoring the tree, that does not make the forces of chaos our ally.
So who would be considered neutral in all of this? Like, you have lawful and chaos, but is there middle ground here? Who would be representative of that?
Is it neutral or balanced? I mean, the tree itself sounds kind of in the middle. It's both chaos and law. From your story, it sort of organized everything and yet let things slip through to disorganize them at the same time. Maybe that's the neutral.
Melicanth will say there are outer planes that are not aligned with either law or chaos and would be neutral in that arena. There's a plane of neutral good energy, plane of neutral evil energy, and several that run the spectrum. I don't think that there is any one definitive source that is truly neutral in all things, though. As is so often the case, everything blends together a bit. It's not easy to identify or deal with an entire abstract.
So from what we know of the tree, it's been unable to break back through to this side except for that one little branch because something is stopping it. What if there are more of these inexorables keeping watch and making sure that the tree stays where they put it?
It's a very strong possibility.
I mean, even just where that little branch was, there was that Marut. Which is kind of that same sort of thing, only on a smaller level.
And it was like impossible to fight.
Granted,
Well, certainly
If
what
there
the
are-
dragon told you is that it wouldn't want to fight it.
if there are inexorable forces of law, we can certainly introduce a friend of chaos just to keep them busy while we break the barrier. And I pat the little pocket where I keep that little vial. That little
The god vial.
Bottle.
The god in the bottle.
Can of whoop ass.
I've got a label with that. So, if we were willing to unleash that thing, we could at least distract them while we work on the barrier, but I don't even know what the barrier looks like, or if it's something we can just break, or maybe the barrier is a thing or a
It
person.
might not be
or
it might not be a physical barrier at all. It could just be these inexorables going around pruning branches for all we know.
I hope it's not a piano. I could never stand pianos.
You're so weird sometimes.
Yeah. I tend to try to think in concrete terms, literally concrete when possible.
Sometimes I think your head is filled with concrete.
If only I were that lucky, I wouldn't have so many concussions.
Melicanth is kind of looking to you, Nira, and just saying, I've always had my preference for arcane magics that come from study rather than reliance on spirits, but I must say that is an impressive spell.
Well, that's actually the first time I've used that one. I think I like it.
Helps to have a god lodged in your chest, I suppose.
Well, that probably doesn't hurt anything.
Is he okay, by the way, or he or it?
As far as I can tell, I've not sensed any changes.
Do you suppose we can, I mean, when everything is all over, find him another mountain? Would that work?
I feel like that's a bridge I have to cross. We can get past the whole breaking of the universe thing. There might not be any mountains left.
Well, if it comes to it, I'll help you find a mountain. I feel kind of bad about it.
Well, it's not your fault. I'm starting to understand that a lot of things they happen for a reason.
Also, a lot of things happen for no reason at all. I think that's what we just learned from your story.
I suppose that's also true, yes.
Yeah, no good reason.
Melicanth will add those. I think one perspective that would be valuable, though, is that while I think we all share an aversion to war and conflict, according to that story, it is the conflict between law and chaos, and although it is causing us our current troubles, is also the reason for all of existence. If not for the struggle between the two, nothing would exist. It is a dynamic situation that allows the world to exist and change in the way we know it.
Alaric, do you remember when we were with the Stone Giants? And there was that really insane small person. Do you remember the things that she was ranting about forces outside of these planes, this bubble of existence, trying to crack it open and get in?
Yeah, she was pretty convincing.
It has stuck with me. And I can't imagine. So I understand the forces of law being able to manifest into a thing that made sense. An object that was very tangible and structured and there. What about the forces of chaos? I can't imagine what that would even look like. Because I would imagine they would have similar entities.
So, if I recall correctly, Chooch, you did let everybody know what Archie experienced when he kind of slipped away. So I think Melicanth will remind that even though there was no speech in it, from Autarky's description of the places he saw, those sound to me like planes that are traditionally associated with chaos. And perhaps even if it was not a spoken offer, perhaps that is the sort of interaction that the forces of chaos might provide. That and, of course, the madness you witnessed in the halfling. Might be two sides of that same chaotic coin.
I can kind of think of it like, when you're deep underground, and you're digging through the rocks, they all look solid. Then you'll strike one, and all that solidness goes away. It's like a river, just flowing right there in front of you. Can be a good sign. You might have found a vein or something better underneath it or behind it or below, whatever way it's going, but it changes. It looked for a moment like it was solid because it needed to. If it didn't look that way, it wouldn't stay there. But the moment that extra little force to change it was there, anything that looked solid vanished. I kind of think of it like that. Not that there's no structure, not that there's no solidity, it's just that the solidity is temporary. It's as necessary and discarded as quickly as can be. That halfling could still do things, could still manifest power, but had a glimpse of the bigger battle going on.
Malakanth says, my understanding all along that the risk posed by the stolen moment was that the timeline had its own form to it, and that by removing a piece from the middle made it unstable, and that was what was causing the instability. It seems clear now that although it may have accelerated the process, the exact same issue writ larger may have been initiated when the tree was destroyed or sealed away.
I wonder if it seems like it wouldn't be possible to convince them to put it back.
Can't imagine.
They're going to a great deal of trouble to try to remove it. Just putting it back, I don't think...
If even one of their own couldn't convince them, I don't know that any of us would stand a chance.
And yet, I have no idea if it would be possible to convince them, but it would certainly seem to me that the current trajectory of the multiverse is trending towards a chaotic victory.
If the tree can truly provide stability, which is what our hopes were, and what drove us to go further down this lane, that might be enough to convince those inexorables that it has to be set free. That's the only way for them to even achieve a stalemate, the eternal stalemate.
There wouldn't be a battle for them to fight if that tree doesn't go back. Wonder, where would we even find? Where would they be?
Among all the tough things we got to figure out, that's about number 4 or 5 down the list. I mean, once we get there, maybe we can get our bearings. I have no idea what the astral sea looks like. Everybody calls it a sea, but I'm thinking no waves, or nothing I recognize.
Malakanth will say that everything I've always learned about the outer planes and their association with different energies always described the forces of law and chaos in an abstract way. The idea that they are actually entities with a will and perhaps even physical form is not something I had ever heard before. What you learned from the dragon and with their spell. This is not something that is known in the world as I know it. It transcends anything that I've even heard discussed before.
I guess there are bigger things than are dreamt of in your libraries and books and philosophies, then, aren't there?
It would seem so.
You're gonna write one hell of a book when all this is done.
Well, assuming I remember it.
Oh yeah. There's that.
But
that is the rub of it, isn't it? We will learn all of these things and no one will ever know any of them.
Yeah, maybe that's for the better.
But if nothing else, we know that we have been contacted by forces representing law. And the very fact that any sort of coalition was formed that included both Celestials and Devils, who normally would be very opposed to one another, fundamental opposites on the good and evil axis. Something organized them. Something led to them feeling the need to work together. Forces of chaos may be in a similar situation, even if they are less able to coordinate or organize due to their very nature.
Sounds like they got a taste of existence and don't want it to go away. I mean, these inexorables are much further out on the whatever scale. So
Indeed, the Celestials there's a plane that is permeated, suffused with lawful good energy, and I would have considered them the most pure expression of lawful and good energy, and yet, to hear all this, it would suggest even their existence is defined simply by being the least influenced by chaos. But that there is another purer form of law beyond them.
You know, my to-do list keeps getting longer.
I would think that our primary objective now is the same. Until we know what can be done about the tree, we don't have any other plan of action. We have no offer to take to either side if we don't know what can be done. Feathercrest, by the way, is kind of just sitting in the corner, eyes really wide, just like... just not contributing. She's like, okay, you guys are off on a whole other level here. I'm just gonna... moral support.
At this point, we got to make sure we have both moral and immoral support to make sure it's balanced, though. All right. Well, we can sit around staring at each other for days. Unless I'm doing that with beer and song, it doesn't really make much sense. So we know what we know. Do we want to ask one more question? Or we want to put that one away for another day? Well, I guess we can't.
Well, I mean, if we leave the mansion and she leaves the ivory here, it would still be here when she comes back.
Well, I mean, it would have to be reimagined as part of a new casting of the mansion.
Mm-hmm.
But
So, I mean, while we're here, if you guys have something else that you want to ask about.
I agree with Otterkey.
It was a lot, and it gave us information not only about the renegade, maybe not so much specifically where to find more of him, but it also gave us information about the tree and about what we might be up against. Trying to restore it.
Melicanth would offer. We've heard that the Githyanki are a force to be reckoned with in the Astral Sea, but my understanding of the Astral Sea is that no living creature can age there. They cannot be native to the Astral Sea. They must have come from somewhere. Knowing more about them and what threat they pose to us would probably be valuable. But I don't know of a specific legendary aspect of that necessarily.
Would be worth knowing. Maybe there's some legend about why the Githyanki are in the Astral Sea. Maybe some great exodus, for all we know.
There's still the stolen moment itself. If there's some questions we still find lingering about that thing.
Well, I think the immediate need is probably more the Githyanki. Because we won't be ready to deal with the stolen moment until we put the glue back in the binding, so to speak.
That's fair.
Thoughts? Shall I ask?
Go for it.
Yeah.
I'd like to know. It sounds like it might be a little more, I don't know, on my own level too.
Yeah, after that, like, that was pretty heavy. All right. The, kind of stretch it out.
Work to begin casting the spell once again.
Mm-hmm.
This time focusing on everything you've heard so far about the Githyanki as a collective entity, and where they must have come from, and what they're like, and what they do, and yet how do they live on the astral sea? How does that work? What is their story? And once again, you find your awareness diffusing outward. Once again, awareness of this endless, infinite tapestry. And the flavor of this information is different. You have a sense that with the caretaker, you had a lot more knowledge to begin with. And so there was a lot more of this disparate imagery that could be brought to you in a way that would be sensible. So you're not able to gather as much for this, but you do learn this, that eons ago there was a race called the Illithid, and as you see some of these, you realize you've seen these things before when you were in the elemental plane of water saving the Kuatua. The tentacle-faced things that they fought were Illithid. And so eons ago there was this race that was ascendant and had an enormous and vast civilization. And they were very slavery focused. And one particular race that they had entirely enslaved was known as the Gith. And as you see some imagery of Gith, you realize they look somewhat like the Githzerai that you have encountered. And for a long time, the Gith were nothing but the slaves to the Illithid. But eventually, a revolution was formed. The Gith overthrew their oppressors and nearly annihilated the Illithid civilization, deciding that they were too dangerous to live. And not only were they victorious, but as a society, the Gith were almost obsessively focused on hunting down any remaining Illithid wherever they might hide and destroying them. And so that they would never forget this mission that they had, some of them began to experiment with necromantic energy to find a way to live beyond their mortal lives. So they explored into planes where that would be possible, and they explored dark magics. And some of them managed to convert themselves into liches, a type of extremely powerful undead. And so that their society could be preserved in its fighting-ready state, they established a foothold in the astral sea where they would never age. They wouldn't need to eat or sleep or drink, and they would never age. But some of the Gith found this an entirely abhorrent way of living, and although they too hated the Illithid, they felt that it was not worth sacrificing who they were only to pursue the last remaining scattered Illithid. And there was a schism and a bitterly fought civil war between the two sides, which came to be known as the Githyanki and the Githzerai. The Githzerai moved on, found their own place, their own society, and were largely focused on maintaining a balance in all things and a code of ethics that they followed rigorously. Meanwhile, the Githzerai, in their endless search for any remaining Illithid, they came to feel that the spoils of their raids were not merely acceptable to take, but their very due. It was their right to take whatever they could, wherever they went. They thought of it as a moral good at first. It was payment for their services of relieving these places from the Illithid threat. But after a while, it just became a way of life. They would seek out rumors of Illithid, or perhaps just rumors of treasure, raid it, and take their treasure home to their undead queen. And so it has been for a long time. But the one place that they could never search was the enormous tree sealed away within their realm, surrounded by an energy barrier that they could not reach and defended by forces that they could not defeat. That has been an uneasy stalemate for thousands of years. In the meantime, they have recently discovered that an increasing prevalence of tears in space-time between the different planes has made their raids all the easier. And the looting is good for the Githyanki. And then you come awake again.
Well, so here's what I learned. And I give you guys a story. Because again, a lot.
It got a little twisted back and forth. So I just want to clarify: the Githzerai were the ones with the balance and code of ethics, and the Githyanki were the undead worshiper or undead people.
Yes. Well, they're
Okay.
not all undead, but their
Right.
leader is.
Yeah, it's a feature.
Yeah.
Not necessarily a
It
universe.
is something to aspire to, is to become this perfect undead that will never, ever die. And it's one thing to be preserved because you don't age, but anytime you leave the astral sea, like on a raid, you age while you're away. But their Lich Queen will never die. Perfect.
So we have a few things going for us here. We have fought the enemy that they have sworn to defeat. Cadence and Ket, you weren't with us yet. But there was a moment where we traveled to the elemental plane of water, where the Illithid had come through and got a little toehold. And we helped the people there try to break that. So that might be an in.
Do these people still like you?
The Illithid? Probably not.
No, I mean the people that you helped. Because wherever you go, you seem to leave destruction behind. And the
No,
people don't have-
we were granted great boons. We can breathe underwater now, son.
And that's
We
why we can
the
speak
language
Croatoan.
too.
All right.
Yeah. So, as you may recall, where you left things with that is that they believed that with the advantage that you had given them, this ability to, to fight back against the brainwashing, that they believed that they could turn away the Illithid in their own city, and so you defeated a couple of them. But that it was mostly they appreciated you giving them like the ability to continue working, because the spirit of Lake Elamon had tried to convince them that they should just abandon their home and essentially be thralls to it instead. But so where you left things was that it's not that the Illithid were completely defeated, but that the Croatoans felt that they had what they needed to fight
Did
back.
we close the portal there? I think we did.
You did.
Yeah, we sealed them off.
No.
The Croatoans, they have a different kind of magic altogether. It's kind of neat.
It's pure will. I think they'd get on well with the Astral Sea.
Maybe they do. You suppose we'll run into any of them there?
Well, I guess we'll find out.
Malakanth will say, well, the Astral Sea, by its very nature, is where what we think of as our souls. That's where souls go when we die, no matter what plane you come from.
Well, at least we'll be nearby.
It'll be a short trip for us, I guess.
Yeah. Be like going home again. Now, you said something about them facing off against the inexorable and never defeating them, and some sort of actual barrier.
Mm-hmm. I don't know what that is,
Yeah.
but if we can get an audience, they want to get to that tree as much as we do. So not only can we offer them, hey, there are some Illithid in the material plane water.
So we'll have to see if our impressive farce meets up against the inexorable wall.
So we might need to lean pretty heavily on our bard here.
One little bit of context that I'll add to, just in terms of context, I guess, is that although it is true the Githyanki want to eliminate all of the Illithid, it's like they don't care. Collateral damage is not a concern for them. They will try to achieve their objective and then take whatever they want as a result. So it's not usually something that goes well for the people who are there already.
But they didn't have anything to start with, so...
I'm just saying, though, that you should not think of it as a trivial thing to say, hey, let's send the Githyanki over to the Croatoan city, because it would probably,
I give you that, but Mary,
I'm just
we're kind of
making
at an
sure
ends
that-
justify the means type of thing here.
I know, I'm just making sure that was understood, is all.
Then you will be the only people left who speak Croatoan. That's what she's saying.
Well, no, not necessarily, but I'm just saying that, they're not careful. Their goal is kill the Illithid, then take whatever they want. Period.
Mhm.
Yeah, so they want access to the tree, and we have knowledge that they might not have.
I don't know. I don't know if giving them access to the tree is necessarily the greatest idea.
I don't think it's great either, but
I mean, they're right.
I mean, if we want to get there, we're trying to get there, and I don't know about you, but I don't necessarily want to fight through an entire army of Githyanki.
We just use that scout ship idea. I think it's the best hope we've got right now is to hide.
But we need to have a backup plan.
We'll make one when we get there, as usual.
We'll make our backup plan after our other plan that we don't make fails.
Feathercrest will offer that based on my experience of them, I don't think that you could ever trust them. they would not keep any promise they made to you.
Yeah, he said they probably would just take what they want anyway.
I don't know that. How do you? Well, I mean, I guess they could torture it out of us, maybe, but
More magic is out of it. I don't know what they can do.
I don't doubt that the information, I mean, based on the story, I think that they would be interested in that information, but they might not be interested in giving you what you want in exchange for it when they could try to get it from you in some other way.
well, but if they want to get to the tree, we might be their best hope for doing that.
Do you want them to get to the tree, though?
Not really, but I want the tree back in place, and if the tree is back in place,
They could still have the barrier in the astral sea, though, blocking it off from them.
so here's the thing. When we go through that giant rift, now that we have these tuning forks, we don't necessarily need to leave it open.
The rift.
Mm-hmm.
Can we close them? You still able to do that? I've lost track.
I believe we can. It's been a while
Yeah.
since we had to do it, but
We closed the one when we came through from when we were with Zorak. We
The
closed
Shadow
that
Bell.
one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a little bit wobbly. Like there seem to be a lot of factors in play, but you have closed them semi recently.
I mean, that is kind of the plan B of getting out, though. If Amethyst or Melicanth aren't able to use the pitchforks, or tuning forks, whatever they are, then we'd have to make our way out through one of those holes.
I just suddenly imagined that American Gothic painting where it's Melicanth and Amethyst standing there holding up their tuning forks.
Perfect. I think that when we put the tree back in place, the idea is it's sort of going to knit the universe back together. You can't go around closing all those holes. And from what others were saying, it didn't matter anyway because more holes were just opening up somewhere else.
well, that the reason that so many holes are opening is because it's so unstable without the tree. If you put
Right.
the tree back, you'll have less holes to deal with. Maybe they're forming less easily then.
Yeah, one can hope.
I mean, we're in completely uncharted territory. I don't think anybody could know what would happen.
You know, from everything I've heard about the Astral Sea, it's not only uncharted, it's unchartable. So, yep.
Well, unchartable except for those that actually live there, I suppose.
Or those with enough brain head power to just make their way everywhere. That's going to be weird. All right.
Nira,
now we
you
know.
just get another ping. It's Zorath again saying, "The universal fracturing is accelerating. There is an enormous discontinuity in the spiritual energy of the negative plane. Forget the tree and stop wasting time."
I'm going to ping back and say, the tree is part of the problem. Because it is gone, that's why everything continues to unravel.
Yeah, that's what we've been talking about.
I think she's got private DMs.
What?
Yeah, so this was a message that only Nira heard in her head. Yeah, a message spell, a sending spell from Zorath.
So I'm going to cast Sending again.
Mm-hmm.
Nice will say, this is a two-pronged battle. We need to win both.
I don't know if there's time to follow up the one that you are pursuing presently. You would have to make your way through an army, and have you checked outside?
And at that, I just kind of like freeze.
I cast message to Cadence. Mira's doing that thing again, and she's talking to herself. You can reply to this message.
So, guys, I don't know if anybody has looked outside recently, but we might not be alone.
But we are not. We're just leaving from inside the mansion, so
Yeah, we might want to do that. So, like, nobody can get in here, right?
Right? Nobody can get in unless I allow them in.
That's what we hear.
Malakanth says,
Well,
or
they could
unless someone
dispel it,
dispels it, but that would be difficult.
And nobody knows we're here. Well, I mean,
Really? We haven't moved.
well, they can locate me and Ted, so they might know we're here.
well, if you're on the same,
Right.
let's see if I get this right, plane of existence.
Yes, they
Yeah.
should not be able to scry you when you're in the mansion.
Correct.
But when you're outside, they could.
So what are you saying, Nirkina? What's changed? Did you ask another question? I thought you only had two.
It doesn't matter. Just go look outside. I'm telling you, there's problems.
I'm gonna-
Do you have a peephole in the door? Do you have one of those little looky windows?
As a matter of fact, I do! I go and poke my eye out to people.
Okay. What you do see is you don't see anything that you wouldn't expect to see, except that there does seem to be an unusual sort of quality to the light. It's kind of not the same sort of color that you would normally expect. There's kind of a reddish tint, a little bit more than you would guess.
Huh.
Yeah, there's something outside.
Something?
I don't know. The light is all funny.
Does anybody want to pop their head out or not?
Not really.
I
I mean, if
I'm right here.
No, no,
I'm
do
right
it.
here at the door. Listen. It's okay. I'm not going to step outside. I'm just going to open the door a little and poke my head out.
but they won't,
If anybody hits me, I'll just shoot them with finger of death. It's okay.
but they don't know we're here, and now they will know that we're here.
They can see the door, though, can't they?
Malakanth will
there's
just
a
say,
giant door
we
in the
could
middle
have
of the
someone
desert.
with one of the charms look out the door.
Yeah, that's probably a better idea.
Oh, that's a good idea, Malakanth. You're so smart. Here, you guys, look out the door.
I'll look. I know how to hide around a corner, so I'll look carefully.
Okay, you do that.
I cast pass other tricks on Alaric.
I hold up my finger.
Alright. So, Alaric, as you peek out the door, when you're just looking, you do see that there's a quality of the light that's different. It is as though the sun has just changed color just a little bit. You, having been to several other planes now, have kind of gotten used to how each plane does just feel different. And as you're just looking at the light, it does look different a little bit, like the way that things look different when you go from one plane to another, but you don't sense any other difference when you're just looking through the doorway.
Close the door. Huh. But the light is kind of different.
Is there anybody out there?
No, but it's,
Did you cast see invisibility?
I gotta think it's big. It's probably too big to see. It's kind of like,
How does that make any sense? Too big to see.
When is everything not too big? Like, everything we fight
know-
is big.
when we have gone through some of these rips, these tears, right? And we pass through, and it's different on the other side. It's like everything is different on the other side. I kind of feel like a big rip or something is happening.
Huh.
Maybe they found that dragon.
Maybe.
So we just got done a day or so ago, stepping into one ambush. Are we going to walk into another as soon as we step out of this mansion?
I don't
We're
think we
not
should
going
step
to
out.
Step out.
Okay.
We're
think we
gonna
should go
leave
now.
Right here. We're gonna plane shift from right here.
Okay, wait,
Kent
wait,
will
before
nod
we
and
go,
say, we absolutely can cast the plane shift from here.
I direct my servants to give me a big stein of alcohol before we go.
I don't know what the mountain told you, Nirkina, but it was a good instinct.
Yeah, I sometimes get helpful little pings that way.
Can I do an insight check on that?
Yeah.
Not that I'm terribly insightful.
Do I have to roll?
Yeah. Deception. I mean,
So I'll tell
because
you,
table talk, we know what's going on, right? So, yeah, you're definitely trying to deceive them.
A 21 on my insight.
17.
Yeah, I think you... Yeah, she's not telling you everything, all right?
Yeah. We'll talk later. If
On the
there's
inside of Lark's like, what else is new?
She has that strange shade on her face, the same one she had when she was talking to that bastard. Anyway, he's not here. I can't punch him. All right. I think we should move now.
Mhm.
Everybody ready?
Yeah, if something dispels this mansion, we're done.
So, let me double check how long Melicanth's fly spell lasts.
It's like an hour.
I think it is only 10 minutes.
Oh, crap.
But she is prepared to cast it on 3 people whenever the time comes to do that.
And Amethyst can turn us into flying animals if she has to.
Right. But I think as you kind of talked about, it's like she can do that, but she's maybe holding that in reserve. Because all you really need to be able to do is sort of, once you're there, make sure you stay together until you can find the spot you're trying to navigate to. And then from there, you can kind of, the people who can fly can help guide everybody and land safely there.
And if we're falling, I can help with that, at least temporarily.
Yeah, and I mean, if worst comes to worst.
So in theory, if I just close my eyes and like just am there, like I don't know what's up and what's down. Theoretically, I'd just stay in one place, right?
Yes,
Doesn't
actually.
work that way.
But the problem ultimately is that it is not very controllable to have everybody be in the same. Like, so, what if you manage to be stationary, but Chooch falls that way, and Cadence falls that way, and Alaric falls that way? That's the problem. Is that
Also,
you need to.
Having been there, I can tell you it's got a very convincing sense of up and down when you first fall through. Granted,
Okay.
I fell through.
Because whatever your your subjective sense of what down is, you will fall that way like you're in free fall.
Well, don't we all have to be holding hands when we do plane shift anyway?
Yes, but it's just a question of like, is it enough to just be holding hands? Well, you
Yeah.
I
guys
think we
decide.
should tie ourselves together. We've got rope.
Yeah, we do have lots of them. Okay.
Yeah.
It's not a bad idea.
Let's do it.
Okay.
I would imagine Amethyst probably turns into a giant eagle. And she'll hold out her wings.
Yeah. I tie a bit of rope to one of her talons.
All right.
I'll ask Feathercrest how to tie the rope so that her wings aren't affected.
Yeah, around her waist is fine. So she does that, and you all tie yourselves, and as you're getting ready, Melicanth goes ahead and she casts Fly on herself probably, and then I think Alaric, because you've been there before, so you might have the most experience trying to orient yourself. And she's kind of offering for free and kind of gestures
I'll take it.
to you, Nira. All right, so casts Fly on herself and Alaric and Nira, and then because we had Amethyst turn into the giant eagle, Melicanth can cast the plane shift spell. So she'll cast it for this So she begins the incantation, and you hear the tuning fork start to, resonate. And it's getting louder and louder and louder. And then there's a flash of white, and we'll pick up there next time.
I totally saw that happening. Totally
It's called the scene shift spell.
That's right.
So it won't be next week, because next week we're going to be down a few players again because it's almost Balticon. But we will play something, so we'll see what it's going to be next week. But when we can return again as the Heroes of Legend, we will find out how their plane shift to the elemental plane of air goes, and what maybe is happening with this accelerating fracturing, and what's going on in the astral sea. And we'll find out when we return. We'll find out more on so many levels. So thank you guys for playing. Thank you everyone for watching or listening later. We love you, and we'll be back.
Mwah!